Dan, Verizon, AT&T, and Comcast have said for years during this discussion that you and I have both followed that if the FCC treats them like utilities, they will stop investing in new wires. Do you buy that argument?
Well, it depends how it's going to be structured. But specifically, if you get into rate regulation, because now telecommunication service is going to be a regulated utility. And if you get into rate regulation, it's almost impossible for them to invest the same way that they've been investing over the last few years. So we got to be careful. If we want an open internet, we still got to make sure that you're going to have the investment, and how they structure it will be critical.
And so what's really crucial about this, if I understand correctly, is that the FCC has decided this, but the known unknown is the FCC, in deciding it wants to regulate this way, has granted itself huge discretion on what to do in the future.
That's correct. And you're also opening up Pandora's box here. So there's going to be something called forbearance, which says we're not going to regulate your rates, but you're opening it up to that rate regulation down the road. If you say, oh, you're charging too much, now all of a sudden you put those price controls in place. This could be very negative for U.S. development of broadband.
Dan, let me ask you a question about this. Torsten Slok, I hate to bring you into this, but when we were just in the break, you were saying you had to look up what net neutrality was. I don't think that's an accident. I think what is it about the structure of the U.S. market that we keep having this fight? The fight over net neutrality doesn't really exist in other developed countries.
Well, I would just say from the U.S., there's a very big view that we don't want to have charging for large bandwidth use, whether you're on Netflix, whether you're on YouTube. And so Google and Netflix engaged in a very strong lobbying effort to be able to keep themselves with a priority position.
But what about the argument that the cable companies, the broadband providers, are making that this new regulation is going to disincentivize private investment?
I mean, so the question is, so there are a couple of things that you want to look at with broadband policy. One of them is competition, whether competition drives down price and increases offering. So this is the trade-off, the very real trade-off that we're looking at, which is that there's less incentive if your monopoly power is reduced to continue investing, but there is much greater incentive to charge less and offer better things. But I think, Dan, you're watching the way the wind is shifting in Washington. You just mentioned Google. One of the reasons this is happening right now, that Wheeler made this statement, is that there are new powers there that are shifting this debate.
That's exactly right. And so what we see is that ISPs are going to get hurt by this. Content providers are going to help. The president also had two other proposals that match with this. The first is he's designated a speeding up of broadband lines, okay? So they're trying to regulate you make that investment. And the second point is he's trying to incentivize local governments to build broadband networks to compete with the actual broadband providers. So it seems that we're moving away from a private sector use and trying to balance that out with stifle investment.
Dan Clifton just brought up municipal broadband. I'm having the best time this morning.
And I'm really happy for you, Brendan. My question is my bill going to go down?
Thank you. Thank you.
I don't know.
Dan, is the bill going to go down?
No, your bill will get regulated. If your bill is going up, they'll regulate you, but your service will actually suffer on this. Price controls have never worked in history, and it's probably not going to work.
Are they going to do price controls?
Well, I think that eventually that's where we're going with this. We're going to say, we'll keep your price low, but your service and your ability to innovate will lack.
What is the sweat factor of the major cable providers? I mean, this is like a Craig Moffett question. He was in the FT.
Well, what is the scale for sweat factor?
The sweat factor is I'm watching cable TV less. I sit there with my changer at home and go, wait, how many times in a month are we watching? What's it costing me per on and off? Quickly.
I have no idea.
I have no idea. You deserve that.